Hi, this is Roger. Thanks for stopping by. I just thought some people might be interested in the sort of notes I keep for my orchids. And this has got absolutely nothing to do with not having a decent memory. It's just that, can you remember what you did with 170 items 3 months ago? No, I thought not. Anyway, it's a spreadsheet, mainly for notes. There's no formulas or anything clever in there. It's just a convenient way of dividing up things into little cells with bits of information in. My basic method is when I do a main watering day, I class that as a major update, when I'll actually update my notes significantly if things have changed. So I cut and paste the whole section down and change the date and the day if necessary and sort of start again. The spreadsheet gets bigger and bigger for obvious reasons, so now and again I chop the back end off, store it away somewhere in an archive, and I've got a more efficient, faster running, smaller spreadsheet. I used to use Microsoft Excel, but since I got the new computer, the version of Microsoft Office is just so old and it just doesn't run so well on Windows 7. So I got a freebie equivalent, shall we say, and it isn't as good, but for what I want it's fine. So that's what I use now. Sort of information I keep then, obviously the type of orchid down here, and I divide them up into sections, so I keep all the orchids of the same or similar types together. It's just easier to find them in the notes because there is quite a few nowadays. You can see it starts off with my Orangus, and then the Brassica types. There's Brassadas, Brassia pures in there, Brassidiums, various things like that. Goes on into my Brassivolas, and then into the Cattleya Alliance, and so on and so on. So that's down the left hand side. I then put in the actual species name or variety or whatever if it's a hybrid, and a few notes, if I've got any, about what the flower might look like. If I've actually had the flower for me on that plant, in other words it's a flower I produced rather than bought in, then I actually take a picture and I use a hyperlink, which basically allows me to pull up a picture and have a quick look. Takes a while, I'm not quite sure why. This is a fast computer, and so I get a picture comes up that actually goes with that description. That works quite well. Then I've got the date it actually bloomed for me. I used to just put in the month. I'm actually a bit more specific now because it's quite nice to know how long your flowers lasted, you know, in physically number of days. So whereas I used to put, you know, this one flowered from September to February, that was pretty good stuff. This one here, it's actually in bud now. Last time it flowered it was April till August, and then prior to that it was September, October. And as I said, nowadays I put the actual date that the first flower opened on a spike, or single flower if it was, and the date it keeled over, or I removed it because it wasn't good for the plant at the time. I keep a note of when I actually got it and where I got it from. This one says Netherlands. That would have been an eBay purchase, and the fact that it says Netherlands, it would also be my favourite eBay seller. Never mind, this one came from Bournemouth Orchid Society, that one just came from a run-of-the-mill internet seller, and so on. If it's a seller I like, I actually include the name so that I can remember the specific person. I also keep a note of when it's repotted, and that one I think is quite important to actually know, especially in a pot-bound plant, when you last changed the media. You need to know that sort of thing. It'll help you decide whether to do it now or leave it till later, especially if it's in flower. There's some colour coding going on as well. Anything that's mounted on bark is in an orange colour. That's so that I can find it quickly. And I've started using some oak bark instead of cork bark. I'm differentiating to see if it actually makes a difference to the flowers and the plants. Hopefully not, but oak bark has got some tannins and things in. Cork bark's pretty inert, so there is a difference. I like to know that sort of thing. And those I class as my dailies. That also helps me find them in the notes. Under normal conditions in the summer, daily means daily. This time of year, it's every other day, and some of those that don't like to be too wet in the winter and just don't need the water because of various reasons, they're almost shut down. They go every other watering, so in fact they're every fourth day at the moment. But by the end of this month we'll be back up to 11 hours daylight, plants will be kicking in no uncertain terms, and they'll go back to being daily or at least every other day. This is the last thing I did. It normally only contains when I last watered it. It also actually shows the strength of the actual fertilizer that I used at the time. Okay, so this little section here was last watered on the 5th, some were done on the 6th down here, as you can see. And then moving across a little bit, we've got notes, comments and various other bits and pieces. In here I would put a note in that I'd just repotted it or just mounted it. In this particular case you can see mounted on oak bark with some moss, a small but mature plant, roots look reasonable, it's got wavy edge leaves. So just some general sort of notes. This one's in bud, spikes slowly extending, new root pushing out away from the bark. Yes, that does say root because there is one, and I am talking about one. But the fact that it's pushing away from the bark, it's not going to attach, it's going to be an aerial root. Ho-hum, it's a pity because those are huge. Plant looks good, it's got strong leaves, got some new roots attaching lower down. Okay, that sort of thing. I use a colour code down this right hand column. This is basically just a general comment about the size of the plant, whether it looks okay, and any special things I need to consider. So if it's green, I'm happy with the plant. If it's red, I'm not. If it's yellow, it probably was red once or possibly green once, and now I'm not so sure. So in other words, that's one that I would need to keep my eye on. In this particular case, this yellow here represents a plant that's getting better, so it's on the mend. So it was red once. Things like this particular Orengris, this is one of the ones that needs heat. This, strictly speaking, should be in a warm section in a greenhouse. I run intermediate, so that needs keeping in a place that gets the most heat I can give it. It also has comments about light. I mean, this looks okay, it's a large mature plant, and it needs medium light, like many Orengris. Also in here, I put in, to the best of my ability, the minimum winter temperature. And sometimes that information is very difficult to find and it's a bit of a guess. Okay, I run intermediate, but I do have microclimate, so it is possible to run stuff down the bottom end of the intermediate temperature range and at the top end of the intermediate, and I push my luck. I've even got plants that are classed as cool growing, so they're obviously as far down the bottom end of the intermediate temperature range as I can get them. Okay, so that's just a quick note on the sort of notes that I actually keep, why I think I ought to keep them. It's nice sometimes to look back at a plant that you've owned a long time. You know, when you look at acquisition dates that sort of go back to 2012 and 2013, it's nice to see how they progressed, and I've got that historic record. And at the moment, while my memory works, most of these notes are almost superfluous, but it's nice to know when a flower spike started and then when it actually opened. That tells me how long it actually took, you know, from appearing magically and actually producing some flowers. For instance, my Orengis Alicei, that is notoriously slow at actually getting a spike to flower. Now that spike started a long time ago. It's currently about 2.5 inches long, and it's probably taken 1.5 months to 2 months to get to that length. It's going to need to get up well over a foot before the buds even start to form. This is going to take an awful long time to flower. And yet others, you know, you water a plant on say a Saturday, the next Saturday you look and it's got a 6-inch spike on it that wasn't there the week before. A hell of a rate of progression. Some are fast, some are slow. These notes help me find out which. Okay, thanks for watching. See you again next time.